Good evening, and welcome to this week's Lawnside Chat. I'm here at the home of Tom and Deb Coling. Tom and Deb have been members of our congregation for 6 years? 7 years. Tom's saying 7 years. And they do all sorts of great things for Concordia. Deb's on the council, Tom is on the property committee. And they're just those great church people that I know that if there's anything that we ever need, they will always come through for us. So I'm so thankful for their service to the church, and I'm so grateful that they're having me here tonight. So earlier this week, I got to participate in a Zoom meeting with a friend of mine from seminary. It was part of an educational video series that the One Campaign is doing this fall as a resource for national faith leaders and members of Congress. And the issue that we were discussing was, what does it mean to be Christ-like in the public square? And we reacted to a lecture given by Mike Gerson. Mike Gerson is an op-ed columnist for the Washington Post and a policy fellow with the One Campaign. He's done a bunch of other things. He was in George W. Bush's White House. So it just got me thinking about that subject, and I wanted to share some thoughts with all of you tonight that came out of that conversation I had with my seminary friend Matt. So there are people who, I guess they think this, that faith and politics don't mix or shouldn't mix. And from what I understand, the idea is kind of like, well, faith is about holy things and things of the soul and heavenly things, and it's too messy to get mixed up in dirty politics. And I would agree that that whenever people of faith engage in politics, there are certain things that we should try to avoid. For example, we should never, be partisan. We should never endorse a particular political ideology outright, right? We should try and be clear about why the issue that we're talking about matters not just to people of our faith, but to people of other faiths or people of no faith. However, I reject the idea that our faith has nothing to say about politics. I can't speak for anyone out there, but my faith is not a part-time proposition. I don't think, now I'm doing something holy and for God, and later I'll do something else. No matter what I'm doing, I carry my faith with me. If I'm at home with my wife and kids, I'm a person of faith. If I'm at the grocery store or driving or doing anything, I'm a person of faith. Jesus isn't just a part of my life on Sunday morning or at a Bible study. So how could my faith not influence how I vote? Or how could it not influence the way that I think about certain political topics? Of course it does. And I'm sure yours does too. So when I hear about situations where my values as a person of faith come into play, I use my faith to think about those subjects. Now, I always say this. I'm not a politician, and I don't want to be. I love being a pastor. I love being who I am. So what's my role as a pastor, right? And it starts, of course, with the number one goal of being a pastor is to preach the good news of Jesus Christ. That's number one. But it doesn't stop there, because the thing about the gospel is that it compels us to care about the world that we live in, to care about our community. And as a pastor, I'm involved in all these community issues and all these community things that are going on in our state and in our community. And in order to be part of those things, I have to be involved in the political process, right? And I have to help people, especially who are often left out of politics, who are often on the margins of that, who have no voice, to help them to have a voice and let those voices be heard. No politician in America ever won an election by talking about the poor, by championing the poor. Politicians talk about people like me. They talk about the middle class. That is their target audience. I guarantee you, watch any politician speak from any party, that's what they will be talking about, right? Because they know that those are the people who have the self-interest who will vote. So I think as a pastor, I see part of my role is to speak up for those who don't often get a voice, or more importantly, help those voices be heard. And that's what Jesus did most of the time, right? He hung out with those kinds of people. Jesus told us that the kingdom of God, the dream of the kingdom of God, is not a middle class life. Jesus' kingdom is about the reversal of the world's values. It turns everything on its head. The last are first, the first are last. Tax collectors and prostitutes get into heaven before pastors like me, and politicians. Now, now, should the government be run according to the principles of this down kingdom? And I've given this a lot of thought over the years, and I guess my answer is I'm really not that sure. First of all, I just think it's an impossible thing, right? We can't live that out this side of heaven. There's too many agendas, there's too much selfishness and fear in our politics. However, I don't think that should stop us from trying, because we might not get it perfect, but I'm wondering if we can't get it better. Can we do better than what we currently have? And here's where I always want to caution myself, because again, I'm not a politician. I don't have any particular solutions to all of these problems, right? I'm not going to tell everybody what they should or shouldn't do, because I think I would probably mess up just as badly as anyone else. However, when things come up in public discourse that I think needs a faith perspective, I am compelled to speak up. When we're trying to make the experience of being homeless a crime by not allowing people to camp out or not allowing people to ask for change on the street, I'm going to speak out. When we think the best way to teach people not to kill people is to kill them, I'm going to speak out. When we use the Bible as a reason for not granting rights in our country to our LGBTQ plus siblings, I'm going to speak out. When our government is rounding up people who've lived in our country for 20 years and separating them from their families, I'm going to speak out. When black bodies are killed in our streets, I'm going to speak out. When we think that the answer to our problems is a gun, I'm going to speak out. I know all of those things carry a sense of being partisan. But I also know this from being a pastor of people who don't always share the same political party. No matter what party you're a part of, I know that people really care, that people want to do the right thing. And maybe, just maybe, nobody has helped them to see how those policies are really hurtful to real people. That's why I want to speak out, right? And I know that speaking out brings some division, and I wish that wasn't so. I wish we could get along all the time. But I've also known, since being a pastor, is that that's not always possible. There is a time when my faith compels me to speak out regardless of the fact that it might be divisive. There is a time when I must bring my faith into the public square. What about you? What is it that you think that your faith compels you to do? What is the thing that you know, because of your faith, that you have to speak out on? I know this is a sticky subject, but I think there's a middle path between not saying anything because faith has no place in the public square, to insisting that, on the other hand, to insisting that everyone has to be on board with exactly the way that I see the world as a person of faith. There is a middle ground there. I hope that we can find it. Well, those are just some things that I've been thinking about this week. I hope there's something in there that helps you think about how you might use your faith voice in the public square. Thanks for joining me tonight, and thanks again to Deb and Tom for hosting me. And until next week, may God continue to bless you.